Okay, class, so today, January 26th, is actually a pretty important holiday in my home country. We just call it Australia Day. So Australia Day is the national day of celebration. It's in the middle of summer in Australia. So January is the middle of summer. The seasons are opposite in the southern hemisphere. It's kind of like the 4th of July in the United States. People just get together, have a barbecue. It's probably 100 degrees Fahrenheit in Australia right now, so that's how hot it gets down in Australia. So to start class today, I'm just going to do a little bit of Australian trivia to test you guys' knowledge, see what you know. So we're going to start by looking at a map of Australia. Okay. So can anyone tell me just off the top of their head any cities that they know in Australia? Okay, yep. So Sydney's one of the cities in Australia. That's right here on the east coast. So this one is the second biggest city in Australia. It starts with M. Can anyone tell me what that city is? No one's heard of it? Okay, so that's Melbourne. So Melbourne is where I'm from. That's where I was born. But neither of these are the capital. So the capital is actually halfway in between. Both cities historically wanted to be called the capital, but the government decided to go halfway in between at a place called Canberra. So not very many people live in Canberra. It's mostly just the politicians. It's kind of like, how Washington, D.C. is its own separate thing in the United States. Canberra is kind of its own separate territory in Australia. So you've seen the Australian flag before, because I have it here on my desk. But does anyone actually know what the parts of the flag mean? So yes, that's the British flag. A lot of people get this confused with the British flag because of that. But we see these stars on the Australian flag. So, one thing that's very important about all these stars is they have 7 points. So this is what makes Australia unique, is these 7 pointed stars. So can anyone tell me why those stars have 7 points? So we have the US flag. How many stars are in the US flag? Correct, 50. And 50 represents, yes, the 50 states. So if we have 7 pointed stars, that means, yes, so Australia has 7 states. Actually 6 states in one big territory, but together they make up 7. So this is where all the states of Australia are. So the one that Melbourne's in, where I was born, that's called Victoria. Yep, you've heard of Queen Victoria, so it was named after Queen Victoria. Australia is still in the British Commonwealth. The current Queen is still the head of state of Australia. So that's why they still have the British flag on the Australian flag. This next one over here is called New South Wales. This big one here is called Queensland. Yep, again we see Queen. So Australia still keeps a lot of British heritage. So this one's the territory, this one's called the Northern Territory. So if this one is called Northern, what do you think this one's called? No. This is the East, so yep, the other one the West. So this is called Western Australia. And if this one is Western Australia, this one down here, North, West, good, so this is South Australia. And this little island here is also important. You might know it from cartoons. People have heard of, yep, the Tasmanian Devil. This is Tasmania. Good. So you do know something about Australia. There we go. So each state has their own biggest city. Up here in Queensland we have Brisbane. Here in Western Australia we have Perth. Up here we have a town called Darwin. And here in South Australia there's a town called Adelaide. Has anyone ever heard of the singer Sia? Yep, so Sia is actually from Adelaide. So if you didn't know she was Australian, she's Australian. There's a lot of famous Australians out there. People know Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. Yep, he's a famous Australian too. Nicole Kidman, anybody? Good, so here we have just some basic facts from Australia today.